Uh-oh. And we are live. Ooh, let me fix my camera because I had been messing with it for um, my training. So this week I am wrapping up my summer trainings, and I had one on Monday, which was problem solving strategies for students that read below grade level. So that's what I was doing Monday. So it's kind of out of sorts. So welcome to Teaching Tip Tuesday. My name is Michelle, and on Teaching Tip Tuesday, what I do is I help you to close math learning gaps by providing you with research based teaching tips and effective math strategies that can be implemented in your classroom as early as the very next day. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to Teaching Tip Tuesday. And if you are new here, thank you for tuning in to Teaching Tip Tuesday. And if you are a regular or catching it on the replay, because a lot of the teachers, they actually are busy, and we all know that. And some of them watch the replay. So if you're catching me on YouTube, thank you for being a part of my community. And let me know in the comment section where you're watching from tonight. Say, hi, Michelle. And if you like the content, definitely what you can do is don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell notification so that you can be notified for when I upload new videos or go live like today on Teaching Tip Tuesday. So if you can't catch me live, which sometimes some people are catching me on YouTube or Twitter. You can catch me live. You can catch the replay or the video recording on YouTube. That is where all my Teaching Tip Tuesday videos are. Actually, there's even a section, a playlist for them where I tag all my Teaching Tip videos, and you can definitely subscribe to that. Help your girl out so that I can actually hit that 1,000. So, yes, I think I'm at 809 right now. So, if you could subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification, that would be great. So, on today's Teaching Tip Tuesday, what we are talking about, because I'm just going to jump right into it, is evidence-based math intervention strategies. Now, a lot of teachers, they tend to ask about strategies. I have a intervention group, Facebook group, where a lot of teachers are always asking, well, I'm looking for math strategies. And let me turn my phone off before someone calls, because they always do. It never fails, or text. So, they're always asking for these strategies. And what I do is I always wonder, do you vet your strategies before you actually use them, or do you actually just take a strategy and use it with your kids? Now, I am not a fan of tricks. No, at all. And when I talk about tricks, I'm talking about 4 more, raise the score, 5 or less, let it rest, because those are not mathematically sound actual strategies. Now, they have some truth to them? Absolutely. But there's an article that I always refer to. It's called The 13 Rules That Expire. And under the 13 rules that expire, that article, they talk about how some strategies are only good for that actual grade level. And then after that, they expire. They're dead, because you can't use them in the next for the next grade level. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about evidence-based strategies, partly which is rooted in research base. Now, what I'm going to talk about is how research based, we as educators, we have to take that as with a grain of salt. And a lot of consultants, no disrespect to the consultants, they like to throw around that term. Oh, it's research based. Oh, it's research based. And to be honest with you, what does that really mean? What does it really mean that it's research based? Well, research based just means that it has some inquiry behind it, and it was actually taken and tested in with a certain population. Now, here's the problem with that. A lot of people say, well, it's research based, but there's a professor, and she explained, and I really, really liked her explanation. She said that research based a lot of times does not have practicality. And in layman's terms, what I say is research based means that a lot of times it's theory without practice, meaning that it has not been basically taught or tried with a large sample group of people or across several different demographics. So that brings us to the evidence-based portion. And evidence-based means that it has the research behind it. And let me see, there's practicality in it. And I'm going to share my screen right quick. Let me share my screen. Hold on. Let me go to Google Chrome. I got a new system. And let me see. It's not. Trying to see if it's going to bring. It's not bringing it up. I guess I'm going to have to pull it up on my. Hold on. Pull it up on my iPad because I had to redo all my stuff. Education. Dot Missouri.edu/EBI. Okay, so let me go here. There we are. I don't know why my sharing is not working. But anyway, this is the evidence-based intervention network. And I'm going to pull up what are evidence-based interventions. I'll make it a little bigger. Now, it says that evidence-based interventions are treatments that have been proven effective to some degree, because you're always going to have part of the population that it may not work with. That's with any intervention, anything that you're doing. You're never going to get 100%. They said, as such, EBIs, which are evidence-based interventions, are treatments that are likely to be effective in changing the targeted behavior, in this case, which would be the mathematics gap, closing those gaps, if implemented with integrity. So now, when we're looking for evidence-based strategies, I really like how they talk about the fine print. They say that evidence-based interventions are validated for specific purposes. That means that if you have an intervention and it was validated for secondary students and you try it with elementary students, and it may work, but still it's not validated. The research behind it is not validated for the actual group that you may be working with. It's kind of like medication. Some medication has not been tried on children, but then a doctor may try it with a child and it works, but you don't know the implications behind it. And I'm going to give you an example of that. An example of that is cross multiplication, or y'all call it the butterfly method of comparing fractions. That should not even be a strategy that is taught in elementary school. Why? Because first of all, it's not mathematically sound. That why it works, nobody really knows. We just know that it works. But even more so, cross multiplication, or as elementary teachers would call it, the butterfly method, that is for ratio and proportions. And like I used to ask the teachers who used to teach it in 3rd and 4th grade, I said, what happens when your student gets 3 fractions that they have to compare? But the teachers never thought about that. They didn't think. It was like, but it works for 2. Yeah, it does, but the kids can't explain it. So it is not an evidence-based strategy. So when we talk about mathematics and math intervention, we should be using evidence-based strategies. And the third one, I'm going to skip over the second one because it kind of regurgitates what I said. It says evidence-based interventions are typically validated with large group research. Now, that's important for you as an educator, as a teacher who's intervening, or actually trying to find strategies for your tier 2 students. Now, evidence-based strategies should be validated with large groups. Some of the research that's out there, they have those strategies that you all are following, some of these people. It has not been validated with large groups, more specifically with different populations or demographic of students. Now, for example, with me, I am not a fan of guided math. Why? Because I think it is an exclusive, it excludes and denies access to math curricula or math instruction for students with disabilities or students with learning disabilities, students that are below grade level, and English language learners. Because if you put students by themselves that may have disabilities, especially students that may have BIPs and IEPs, a lot of those students don't have the self-regulation that they need to stay engaged on their own. So a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators are saying, well, we need to put the kids in small group and other kids should be at workstations. Well, if a child has a BIP or an IEP, you are denying access, not intentionally, and I'm sure access to instruction because you know that the student has a BIP. And if you don't know what a BIP is a behavior intervention plan, but you choose to put the child on their own or in a group of students and you know that there's an issue. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of guided math. I'm a fan of small group instruction with practice, whatever those stations look like, that is geared towards the needs of your students, and the needs of your students are driven by data, not by what guided math says, not what math workshop says, because the only research and evidence-based strategy is the small group instruction. There is not any research behind workstations. I have looked high and low. There's nothing there. So when people approach me about this, because it's an unpopular opinion, I tell them small group, great. Math workstations, math workshop, whatever you want to call it, not so much. Those stations or whatever you have need to be geared towards the needs of your students and their data, whatever they're working on, to keep them engaged on task, because being on task is what is going to change their trajectory and their data from going down to up in a growth pattern. So if you are looking for strategies that work, you need to make sure that it's research based, because tier 2 interventions or your math intervention that you do in your classroom, you're supposed to be using evidence based strategies, not strategies that you got from a Facebook group, but strategies, especially if you're a math interventionist or even a teacher specialist or instructional coach that is supporting teachers. Those strategies should be grounded in evidence-based research. And that's where we are. Because a lot of times what we do as math teachers, we create problems for our other colleagues behind us. Like, I was a math teacher and I spent the first 9 weeks unteaching and trying to get children on board with the teaching that I know is going to work to help them pass the 5th grade curriculum and into secondary. So you might be asking, well, what are some evidence-based research our evidence-based intervention strategy. So I'm going to take you over to my website, which is fuelgreatminds.com. Now, on my website, I have different topics that I blog about. And if you click on math instruction, the strategies that I use and that I talk about are strategies that have been research based. And even as a teacher, I've done action research and I know that they work with the demographic of students that I am targeting. So this is one: how to teach problem solving without using keywords. In here, I use read, draw, write along with thinking routines. And here the blog post talks about chalk talk, flip grid, rally coach. Rally coach is a Kagan strategy. Chalk talk is a thinking routine, which is grounded and rooted in evidence-based connect it's evidence-based connected to the research. So that's one of them. So the next one is, let's go to page 2. So I talk about adding fractions with unequal denominators. So graphic organizers I use to help my students, and that is rooted in research, and has been proven that using graphic organizers with similar topics, like my students, if you look in this picture, I don't know why the Pinterest thing is coming up. Well, they're comparing the LCM to the GCF. Because if you've taught fifth grade, you know that that is a confusing term. It's really a misconception and a common misconception. GCF, LCM. But if you have them compare them, and that's with a double bubble map, I don't use the Venn diagram because the Venn diagram, it's not as explicit. And explicit instruction for struggling learners is another evidence-based intervention strategy. I use this because I give them 3 differences. It's just really specific on what we're looking at. So different, alike, and different. So by the time we actually get to finding the least common multiple, the students have a rooted understanding of what the least common multiple is and what it is not. So those are examples of evidence-based strategies. So if you are using those tricks, they have that book Nix the Tricks, which I really like. They're talking about those strategies that are not rooted in evidence-based strategies, and they should not be a part of your math intervention. So those are a few strategies that I use in my classroom. If you're looking for other strategies, you can hop on my blog at fuelgreatminds.com, read my blog post, look at some of the things that I've used in my classroom that I know work with students that struggle, students that are 504 students, students that may not have, well, English language learners, your dyslexic students, or students that are just below grade level. That's what I actually use, and that's my demographic of children. All the things that I use are grounded, or strategies that I use are grounded in research and evidence based. Because if I tell you it's not going to work with this demographic of students because A lot of our students, things that work in suburban school districts will not work in urban school districts or inner city schools in its original form. There are certain things that you're not going to be able to do. So if you're a new teacher and you're watching this live stream, I know y'all like the cute things and all these other different things, but sometimes most of the time, you're not going to be able to do those things until you front load a lot of information, you front load and really take care of a lot of like classroom management issues, social emotional learning issues, all of those issues before you can actually take things that you see in suburban school districts or strategies that they're using and teach them to your students. So it is 8:01 and I want you to, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I would like for you to, if you enjoyed the content, leave a comment in the comment section of wherever you're watching this from. And don't forget to like and subscribe, like this video if you're on YouTube, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for tuning in for Teaching Tip Tuesday, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.